Good afternoon, Bermuda. Today, I'm joined by the Minister of Health, the Honorable Kim Wilson, the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Renee Ming, and the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Jason Haywood. For this evening's press conference, we will start with an update from the Minister of Health. Minister?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had an enjoyable cup match weekend and holiday. I can report that today there were 655 test results received by the Ministry of Health, and there were none positive for COVID-19. Bermuda now has a total of 157 total confirmed positive cases, and their status is as follows. There are 4 active cases who are all under active public health monitoring, and none are in hospital or under critical care in hospital. And a total of 144 have fully recovered, and the total deceased remains at 9. The average age of all confirmed positive cases is 59, and the age range of all positive cases is 18 to 101. Overall, 54% of the cases are Black, 42% are white, and 4% are other or unknown. The source of all local cases is as follows. 53 are imported, 85 are local transmission with a known contact, 19 are local transmission with an unknown contact, and none are under investigation. Bermuda's country status remains at sporadic cases, and the 7-day average of our real-time reproduction number is less than 1. I want to thank all residents who continued to follow public health guidelines over the Cup Match holiday. Those who avoided large gatherings of people, those who wore their mask when they were unable to physically distance themselves from others, those returning travelers who also followed the required testing and quarantine protocols. Again, thank you to you all. I also want to thank the hard-working testing teams who did not take a break and continued to work throughout the holiday. COVID-19 did not take a break, and neither did they. They have been working around the clock to test visitors, returning residents, and members of our community. They are a relatively small team, given the demands of their work, and we are looking to expand their ranks. The testing teams are increasingly stretched due to the volume of travelers arriving in Bermuda on a daily basis. And as such, the Ministry of Health is seeking medical personnel to assist our testing teams with the swabbing of individuals for COVID-19. In particular, we are seeking those with a background in medicine, nursing, dentistry, and emergency medical technicians, whether retired, practicing, or students in training. Individuals will be compensated for their time, and they should contact coronavirus.gov.bm for more information or to express an interest. And some further good news coming out of the Ministry of Health this week. Yesterday, we opened the COVID-19 testing site for travelers at the historic P-ROTS post office. Thank you to both the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Public Works teams for making this happen. And in particular, I'd like to thank the project manager, Mr. Dean Paris, and the acting permanent secretary, Ms. Siobhan Washington. They literally put this together so quickly and really did a phenomenal job. Improvements have already been felt by both staff and travelers attending their required COVID test. I visited yesterday, and the facility is perfectly located, beautifully set up, and enjoys plenty of shade for persons waiting for their turn. This means that waiting times and lines should shorten at all of our testing sites now that we have a specific site just for travelers. The PROT site will operate Mondays to Saturdays, and on Sundays, all tests will take place at the Southside facility. Following the previous COVID-19 modeling, updated parameter values were used to re-estimate the worst-case scenario for a 1-year period following the introduction of COVID-19 in Bermuda. The parameter values are updated over time as more is learned about the epidemiology of COVID-19. Now, the base for a new worst-case scenario uses an average annual reproduction number of 2.4 and lower hospitalizations and mortality rates than previously applied. This new model results in an estimated 1,600 hospitalizations and a range of approximately 1,300 to 1,900 and 264 deaths over a 1-year period. Again, that is the worst case scenario, the model for the worst case scenario. However, As before, the worst case scenario is impacted by additional control measures of case isolation and general contact reduction, including personal hygiene measures, wearing a face mask, physical distancing, and all of the things that you've heard us speak about over and over again. So those mitigants are extremely important to addressing this issue. So again, that is the worst case scenario. Highly effective use of these interventions can reduce these estimates. The best case scenario would be to approximately 100 hospitalizations and 15 deaths over a 1 year period. And that's 1 year from the moment that we first received our positive test of COVID-19 in March. Again, that is the worst case scenario, but then when you measure it with the mitigants that we've been applying religiously, so to speak, then the best case scenario is somewhat promising. But it is also equally important to recognize that there is a difference between the modeled world and the real world, and that all possible scenarios cannot possibly be envisioned. Effective applications of public health measures is key to keeping infections down, hospitalizations down, and COVID-19 related deaths low throughout this pandemic. The updated modeling will be shared on the coronavirus website next week, so please be reminded again that the models produce estimates to support public health preparedness and planning, and they are not predictions of the expected events and outcome of COVID-19 in Bermuda. Shifting gears a little, I would like to address the challenging case that has received much attention this week regarding an intellectually disabled person going through the court system. I want to give full assurance that specialized health professionals, court and corrections teams are working to create a solution for this case. No one wants to see individuals with intellectual disabilities incarcerated, and teams have sought to find a solution within our abilities and resources to care for him. The safety of every individual, as well as staff and other residents, is equally important, and finding a solution that accommodates all is a challenge in a small community of ours that lacks specialized resources. Managing complex intellectual disabilities and or forensic mental health cases often requires low or medium secure units with staff that have that specialized training. And this is not just a matter of facilities, but more importantly, of specialized manpower, which is a short supply worldwide. So it is not viable for any small community to set up a standalone resources for every possible scenario. In larger jurisdictions, such scarce specialized resources service large geographical areas. Creating solutions for individuals outside of existing services does take time, but the interagency team continues to work hard to address gaps in local services and to seek the best solution for the individual that ensures safety and appropriate support for his needs. Finally, as is naturally the case, the government is concerned about the growing number of underinsured and uninsured persons in our community in light of increased unemployment due to the impacts of COVID. This risk to individuals and to the health system is deeply worrying, and we are looking at what healthcare reforms may be needed in the expedited way to ensure that care is made available to those persons. And before I close, I want to end by returning to COVID-19 and reminding us all that while we do not have local transmission at this time, the behaviors that we are observing are putting us all at risk. Remember that people are traveling to and from places where there is community transmission. It only takes one imported case to spread COVID amongst our community, which is why we advise against non-essential travel and better adherence to physical distancing, mask wearing, and hand washing. I have to applaud the venues where we see consistently good adherence to these essential preventative measures, such as supermarkets, retail stores, and buses. They have proven that we can see compliance and operate safely. However, I am increasingly concerned about the settings where compliance levels are not good, such as private social gatherings, in particular at people's homes, and on boats where little physical distancing and mask wearing is practiced at all. These have become the highest risk settings presently. I ask people to remember that COVID-19 is amongst us. Letting our guard down when we socialize is an activity putting us most at risk today. Please wear your mask and wear them at all times and practice good hand hygiene and to remember social physical distancing and the importance of that. Thank you, Premier.
Thank you, Minister of Health. And I would certainly like to echo the sentiments of which you shared regarding the testing teams. Certainly, they have been going, and that is from the ones who are doing the collections to the couriers, to the testers, to the administrative staff, the project managers, and also the persons inside of the lab. The performance of these teams over the last few weeks has certainly made Bermuda's testing regime the envy of the world. And so I want to thank all of the persons who are participating, especially working over the holiday and working long hours to make sure that we keep up with this extraordinary demand. I'd also like to add to the minister's comments by informing the country that the governor informed me yesterday that the United Kingdom's Conflict, Security, and Stability Fund will be sending a final shipment of personal protective equipment to Bermuda, bringing the total amount of personal protective equipment supplied under this program to $1.3 million worth. Additionally, the Conflict Security and Stability Fund is also ensuring that the Ministry of Health will continue to have access to the UK's telemed service, a medical resource comprising of international healthcare specialists who provide advice against the fight of the novel coronavirus. On behalf of the people of Bermuda and the government of Bermuda, I would like to thank the UK government for the additional shipment of this equipment. The Bermuda government has spent millions of dollars on procuring PPE to protect our workers on the front line, and this additional shipment will further bolster the supplies that we have already procured on island. I will now invite the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Renee Ming, to give an update on her ministry's activities over the holiday weekend. Minister.
Good evening, Bermuda. I wish to begin by extending my thanks to all of you for ensuring that this past Cup Match holiday weekend was as incident-free as possible. For the most part, residents adhered to the guidelines as set by the Ministry of Health. While there were a few situations of note which required police attention, overall, there was broad cooperation throughout our community. I wish to also commend our joint community engagement teams comprising of the Bermuda Police Service and the Royal Bermuda Regiment, who were actively visible over the Cup Match holiday. All of our uniformed personnel worked around the clock to ensure public safety on land and sea. As indicated by the Bermuda Police Service earlier this week, there were around 27 arrests made between last Wednesday night and Sunday night. These were for a combination of outstanding warrants, drinking and driving, and assaults. There was some bladed article and knife incidents which required arrests, and just over 60 traffic tickets issued for speeding and other offenses. Over the holiday period, I had an opportunity to visit the Coast Guard at their headquarters in the West End. I received an impressive and detailed overview of their operations, inclusive of their planned patrol activities over the holiday period. The Coast Guard has been operating 24/7 during this pandemic period to enforce emergency regulations on the water, to ensure mariners are in compliance with Bermuda's existing maritime laws, and to respond to search and rescue incidents up to 12 nautical miles from shore. From all accounts, it was an extremely busy day on the water over the long holiday weekend, and I wish to take this opportunity to publicly commend each member of our Coast Guard for their commitment and service. A note about our 2020 hurricane season, which, as we have seen, has been quite active. I'm urging residents to remain vigilant in ensuring that you are properly prepared in the event of a severe storm or hurricane, particularly against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a reminder, residents should ensure that they have basic supplies in their hurricane kits. This includes restocking your typical non-perishable food supplies, making sure you have fresh batteries and smartphone battery packs, flashlights, and other items to aid in an emergency. A change to the usual hurricane kit should be the addition of appropriate personal protection equipment, PPE, for you and for your family. There should be enough PPE to last for 7 days for each member of the household. Residents should also carry out routine activities like updating emergency plans, checking on home and marine vessel insurance, and making key repairs around their home. Emergency and key contact numbers for medical and social services should also be updated. As a reminder, hurricane season is from June 1st to November 30th. And as we shared earlier this year, global meteorologists have indicated that this year's season will be busy due to warmer temperatures. Please note, as I have previously said, we continue to be in the throes of a pandemic. Bermuda, we have managed very well so far, but it's going to take every one of us to continue to do our part and assist where we can. If you visit any establishments, please adhere to the requisite guidelines. This includes if you attend any gatherings of up to 50 people. Please make sure you are taking the right steps to protect yourself and others. And if at any time you see any breaches of the COVID-19 guidelines, please do not hesitate to call the hotline on 211. Regarding the disappearance of Miss Chevelle Dillon Burgess, I urge the public to please come forward to provide the Bermuda Police Service with any advice or information regarding Miss Dillon Burgess' disappearance, or to call 717-0854 or 717-0864. Alternatively, people can also make an anonymous call to Crime Stoppers on 800-8477. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister of National Security. And I share the sentiments about a largely, I would say, peaceful weekend. There was one incident of note, but on the whole, it was certainly a enjoyable and a different cup match. The next person, minister to speak, will be the Minister of Labor, Jason Hayward, who will provide details on the next step for those persons on the temporary unemployment benefit, and will give an update on other matters inside of his ministry. Minister Hayward.
Good evening, everyone. The government's one-year residential certificate initiative, which invites individuals to work remotely from Bermuda, has received a very positive response. To date, we have received 73 applications. Unfortunately, we are receiving incomplete applications, which cannot be processed. However, completed applications will be approved tomorrow, enabling persons to start the process of relocating to Bermuda over the next few weeks. The requirements are basic, and I would implore all applicants to submit completed applications. It must be emphasized that applicants for the one-year certificate must have the means to support themselves while working remotely and cannot seek work in Bermuda. Bermuda successfully managed the COVID pandemic, and our COVID-19 testing regime places us in a unique competitive position to attract new residents to the island. The exposure and the promotion of the one-year residential certificate have led to interest in businesses seeking to relocate their entire operations to Bermuda. The Economic Development Department in the Cabinet Office is working with the Bermuda Business Development Agency to provide advice and planning to the companies who are seeking to relocate. We have also had inquiries from ABER about the relocation of some of their staff to the island, and will communicate directly with how those plans can be executed. Moving on to financial assistance and the supplementary unemployment benefit. The COVID-19 crisis continues to negatively impact both our local and world economies. Bermuda has experienced a significant contraction in its labor force. During the peak of the state of emergency, more than 10,000 persons found themselves either unable to work, laid off, or unemployed. Based on government data from the Temporary Unemployment Benefit Database, as of yesterday, August 5th, 2020, there were more than 5,670 persons that had returned to work and therefore are no longer on the temporary unemployment benefit. There were roughly 4,682 that have not yet informed government that they have returned to work. As of the end of next week, there will be roughly 900 persons who will still remain on the benefit. Of those persons who remain on the benefit next week, we expect that 675 will be Bermudian, 36 will be spouses of Bermudian, 10 will be permanent resident certificate holders, and 180 will be work permit holders. The government announced that the temporary unemployment benefit, which was introduced at the onset of the pandemic, will transition persons to either financial assistance or longer-term unemployment support. The purpose of this transition is to ensure that persons who require ongoing assistance from government receive the appropriate level of support based on their personal and family circumstances. With the economic impact of the pandemic continuing to affect many in Bermuda, there will be persons in our community who remain in need of assistance to obtain the basic necessities of life, such as food, shelter, and health insurance. In order to be eligible for continued support, it is essential that persons who require ongoing support apply to financial assistance. Many have asked why should they apply for financial assistance if they are not eligible due to the fact that they own real estate. The answer is that the financial assistance application will also be used to determine eligibility for the new supplementary benefit. So it is important that all individuals who require ongoing support complete the financial assistance application process. To be clear, only Bermudians and spouses of Bermudians will be eligible for further benefits. The Department of Financial Assistance began issuing applications on the first floor of Global House, 43 Church Street, Hamilton, to persons in need of additional support. Individuals unable to collect an applications are reminded to contact the department to make alternative arrangements. For additional information, persons can call the Department of Financial Assistance hotline at 297-7867. When filling out the application, the form must be 100% complete for the application to be considered for assistance. Once all the required information is on the form, they must be submitted in the mailbox located on the first floor in Global House. The financial assistance process is necessarily rigorous. All applications will be vetted and applicants notified accordingly. Should it be determined that you are approved to receive continued assistance, you will begin receiving the approved monthly award payments. Please note that the financial assistance program is mainly cashless, meaning that vendors are paid directly for and on behalf of the client. Also, a reminder, financial aid given is only a temporary measure to support those in need. As such, individuals who are receiving benefits must immediately notify the government when they commence any form of employment, as they will no longer be eligible. Moving on to compliance with immigration law and policy. The Ministry of Labor wishes to remind employers of their responsibilities towards employees as enshrined in the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Act and the Work Permit Policy. The ministry is fully cognizant of the financial challenges facing many employers. However, it must be noted that unless there is a written mutual agreement stating otherwise, it is the employer's responsibility to repatriate guest workers to their place of origin. Furthermore, if a work permit holder has changed employers, it is the current employer's responsibility to repatriate their workers. It should also be noted that an employee whose contract has been terminated due to the conditions set out in Section 30 Subsection 3 of the Employment Act 2000 are entitled to redundancy pay. Additionally, employers and employees are reminded that once an employment contract has been terminated or a work permit has not been renewed, there is no automatic right to reside and seek further employment in Bermuda. Individuals who wish to reside and seek employment must apply to the Department of Immigration for permission. Guest workers should also be aware of their visa status and take the necessary steps to enable repatriation to their home countries. It is the responsibility of every individual to ensure their travel documents are in order. Lastly, if you think someone is illegally working, living, or employed in Bermuda, you should contact the Department of Immigration by calling 441 296 5202. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Hayward. Today, I will speak about three pressing issues that I believe are pressing for entrepreneurs, families, and employees. The first is the Work from Bermuda residential certificate that the Minister of Labor just highlighted. As he stated, since we launched the initiative, we've received a large amount of international media attention. And it is unsurprising as the story has many facets. To healthcare workers, the certificate signals our successful management of the coronavirus. To global business, it shows that Bermuda is expanding its economic options. And for companies that are ready to increase in clients looking to relocate here. Additionally, the Bermuda Business Development Agency has received queries and requests for more information from Australia, Canada, and the United States, inquiring about setting up a Bermuda entity and redomiciling to Bermuda. And this is all due to the fact of our collective successful management of the coronavirus pandemic. Also, for additional activity for our local insurance companies, the BDA is currently working with them to create health insurance options for one-year residential certificate holders. The Bermuda Tourism Authority, who are also stakeholders in the one-year residential program, report that they have generated more than 30 international news stories around the initiative, with 526 million news impressions, which represents almost $1 million in media value. The launch of the Work From Home website was designed to specifically inform potential applicants about the lifestyle aspect of the move to Bermuda and resources to make the transition easy. The one-year residential certificate is just one of the economic programs we are offering to change the adverse effects that the pandemic has had on our economy. And the first batch of applicants will start hearing from the Ministry of Labor tomorrow. In reality, remote workers and digital nomads could start arriving in Bermuda as early as next week. The promotion of this program will continue for the rest of this year and into 2021, and further information can be found at workfrombermuda.bm. Over the last few months, we have done everything in our power to collectively manage the coronavirus on our shores. And this success has only been possible with the support of everyone in Bermuda. I and others have stated that Bermuda is facing a serious economic challenge, and we will for the remainder of 2020 and into 2021. However, it is important that we now do our part and participate in growing our economy. And like fighting the coronavirus, it will only be possible with the support of everyone in Bermuda. Of course, it sounds basic, but we must do our part to support Bermudian business. We should eat at our restaurants. We must buy from Bermuda-based shops. We must support farmers, fishermen, seamstresses, landscapers, and if you have a vacation plan, spend those vacation dollars in Bermuda, as local hotels are offering vacation rates for residents, and many of them reported that they were full over the Cup Match weekend. I do recognize that there were many Bermudians who were concerned about the opening of our airport to regularly scheduled commercial traffic. However, as we've highlighted today, we have successfully developed and implemented the most stringent testing regime in the world. And the welcoming of visitors has a real impact on our economy. Let me highlight what it means in real numbers. just so we can understand the July airport and tourism figures. Even though there were not a large amount of arrivals, the amount of visitors and non residents who entered the airport were 1,725. This equated to $6 million of visitor spending. However, it enabled a large number of, it enabled hotels and other persons to get back to work. This means that 919 persons who were previously unable to work in the tourism sector were able to return to work. The unemployment benefit savings were $1.2 million, and there was $400,000 of revenue to the Bermuda Airport Authority, which will offset any future charges from Skyport Bermuda. Opening the airport was a good decision, and it was the right decision to support our families who desperately want to make sure they have an opportunity to earn and to provide for their families. And though our testing regime is rigorous, and though it was quite a battle to make sure we decided on what it was ending up being, visitors are coming and visitors are enjoying their time here. And this week, Bermuda even welcomed its first super yacht charter under our new super yacht legislation. The Bermuda Tourism Authority will step up its marketing efforts as there are now more flights to Bermuda in August as there were in July. And it's important that we continue to capitalize on the fact that we have successfully managed this pandemic through our excellent testing program. Today, I was pleased to participate with the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation and the Bermuda Industrial Union, the Bermuda Credit Union press conference to announce an initiative that reduces 50% of the red tape that small business owners face and helps entrepreneurs access funds guaranteed by the BDC much faster. Previously, entrepreneurs had to go to the BDC, seek their approval, and then go to a financial institution, seek their approval, and if successful, then receive the funds. Under this new agreement, the credit union and the BDC have agreed underwriting terms, meaning the entrepreneur who needs funding will go to the credit union, and if they meet their criteria, the BDC will guarantee up to 75% of the loan. This will put money into the hands of the small business owner faster, giving them the financing they need to launch any new business enterprise sooner. It is hoped that the island's 3 retail banks will soon begin to start offering this service as well. However, we are thrilled to launch this streamlined program with the Bermuda Credit Union. The BDC has also created the Business Sustainability Funding Program and has so far provided support in excess of $4.5 million to 80 local businesses, with several more applicants about to be notified that their application was successful. The BDC continues to provide ongoing support to entrepreneurs and is implemented a new series of webinars that provide information on a variety of topics such as marketing, support for getting your business online, and privacy to make sure that businesses can thrive inside of our new economic climate. It is important to recognize that Bermuda is indeed moving to a new economic normal. However, collectively, we get to help to define what that normal looks like for ourselves. As I said, it is important to support our local economy so that more and more persons can get back to work. And it is only working together that we will ease the financial difficulty that we are facing. There certainly are challenges ahead of us, but as we have seen, there are also opportunities. And we must, as a people, continue to be creative. I'm going to move from the economy to touch on the matter of education and school opening. Bermuda's public schools will open to receive school staff and students in their respective buildings next month. School begins for staff on September 1st and for students on September 9th. All of our schools will be adopting a hybrid model for teaching and learning, which includes both in-class and remote teaching and learning. One question that parents have been asking is how will students be accommodated in school with physical distancing requirements? Based on our COVID-19 status of no community transmission, the Department of Health will allow for 3 feet physical distancing and the use of plexiglass separations where applicable. This will enable schools to accommodate the majority of their students in school buildings. Stringent safety and health protocols have been developed by the Department of Health technical officers, and schools are required to enforce the protocols throughout the school day. These protocols are currently on the Department of Education's website and are being updated as new information is being received from the Department of Health. The Department of Education has been working on a number of fronts related to reopening schools. Some of these include preparing facilities, securing extra cleaning and hygiene supplies, and additional IT devices for students and staff, and extending Wi-Fi access in our schools, and finalizing the essential curriculum and proficiency scales while organizing enhanced training for staff. The Department of Education officers have also participated in meetings with representatives from the Department of Transport to discuss the transportation plan for our students. The Department of Education is also currently engaged in communication and consultation to ensure that stakeholders, especially our valued teachers, are fully informed of reopening plans and can prepare accordingly. I urge all Bermuda Public School families to attend the Town Hall Zoom meetings with the Commissioner of Education, technical officers, and officials from the Department of Health, or follow along in the respective Facebook groups set up for the different school levels. Parents will have the opportunity to ask questions about school reopening in September during these meetings, and I will highlight these meetings. Saturday, August 8th, preschool meetings from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m., and primary school meetings from 6:30 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. Monday, August 10th, middle school meetings from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., and senior school meetings from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And on Monday, August 24th, Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. All meetings can be accessed live on the Bermuda Public Schools Facebook page. Before I take questions from members of the media, I would like to state two things. First, I'd like to let members of the public know, that I received an email last week indicating that the government of Bermuda at these press conferences should do something about the many plastic water bottles that we use at each press conference. My team took this to heart, and we have secured some reusable water bottles. I thank the Information Commissioner's Office for the reusable bottles that are now available for participants in the weekly press conferences. And as the Minister of Health informed earlier, she said it's fine. It's about time that you got with the program. Yes, Minister of Health. Finally, I would like to wish a very happy 101st birthday to Mr. Walter Seymour of Sunnyside Park. Last year, I was fortunate enough to attend his 100th birthday celebration, and I'm thankful that God has given him one more year with us on Earth. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that members of the media may have.
Good evening.
Good evening, Trevor.
Minister of Health, over the last few weeks, we've had a high number of tests performed. Can you give us a breakdown on first-time testers, second, multiple times, and what is the financial cost for all these tests?
That's information I'll have to get to you. We've, like you said, we've tested probably several thousand people over the last couple of weeks, so I don't have that in front of me. And so far as the representation of how many were visitors, how many were locals, how many were retests, I'll have to get that information for you.
Thank you much. Minister Hayward, I'm not sure if you or the Premier can answer this, but 20 redundancies at HSBC, one branch in particular is to take place starting October. Have you been in contact with the bank on these issues, on these redundancies, as a matter of fact?
I have had direct contact with the bank regarding these redundancies, but this trend we expect to see for much more establishments. I've been in contact with other establishments as well who have indicated that they are contracting the workforce. This, of course, is alarming, but we will continue to manage the process and provide the necessary employment support and financial support for those people that actually need it.
Important, as the Minister of Labor has outlined, is that this is a trend of which we will be expecting. The fact is that with the contracting economy, as we've seen around the world with record unemployment in countries everywhere, that is the reason why it is critically important for us to do the work of which we're doing to allow new economic avenues for support inside the country. So when I highlighted the issues of what is taking place inside of our hotel properties. When we highlight the issues of the support that's happening to make sure that we can get construction going in a number of projects, that's the reason why it's so important for the government to be focused on the economic crisis. And what I said in my comments earlier today at the Bermuda Credit Union is that the government has successfully managed the economic crisis, and now we are turning our attention to put the same amount of energy into the economic crisis. And I think that we've seen, at the same time that we've seen challenges, our good performance has allowed us to also do a lot better than other particular islands which have found themselves back in lockdown.
I'm glad you mentioned hotels. Have there been any updates on Southampton Princess, their opening with the government, or even Hamilton Princess? Has there been any communication with you?
I do know that as the minister responsible for tourism, I do know that we have a regular meeting that is scheduled with hoteliers. That meeting did not take place yesterday, but that meeting will take place next week. So I'm happy to give any further updates to you on that. The indications which I had was the Hamilton Princess to look to open towards the end of the month. I don't necessarily have an updated figure. As I said, these things continue to juggle, but they are taking bookings. So while they are still taking bookings, it's the expectation of which they'll open. But what I can say is for the hotel properties that have been open, they have been seeing decent business. It's not the business of which they would have, and certainly the daily rates which they're charging are not the daily rates which they'll charge during a peak summer season without a pandemic. But Rosewood, for instance, was full. I know that the Lauren has been doing good business. I know that Coral Beach is doing business as well. So the fact is there are more flights, there's more opportunities, and it is also supported by locals who are spending some of that $300 million that we spend on overseas travel a year here in our own economy.
On another note, with the financial situation we find ourselves in with Skyport and the previous administration that signed off on this, would you consider an investigation, detailed investigation to how this came about?
The answer to your question is yes, I certainly would, but would detract from the government's focus right now. And so there's a lot of things that I would like to do, but there's things that require our focus. Here's what I will say regarding the airport. The Minister of Tourism and the Airport Authority have been given a set of instructions from the cabinet. We do not like the position of which we found ourselves in, having to pay out this guarantee money with a contract that was written that does not allow any type of variation clauses or allowances for situations like this. We feel that it is a bad situation where a government has been robbed of the revenue from the airport. So we're not getting the revenue from the airport. And then at the same point in time, while we have to fund certain activities for the airport, are now having to find money and to use for this revenue guarantee, which will only go to foreign bondholders and will not support the activities of which we need here in Bermuda. So we're going to continue to work through that process. And I think that there will be time to find out exactly how we got into a space. It doesn't make sense to me that the former government spent over $5 million on external legal counsel, and we still have our contract in a situation like this. It doesn't make sense.
Minister of Health, my final question for you, with the mental health issues that is front and center, and with the many people that are unemployed, your office, are we prepared for an influx of individuals that might fall under this umbrella?
With respect to
Mental health issues.
mental health issues, well, let me answer that.
Due
in
to the
two-
pressure of not being able to provide your family and not working, and the pressures that brings.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're highly cognizant of that. I think, as a government, we have taken steps to make amendments to the Mental Health Act so that we can address the needs of persons in the community that are suffering from mental health challenges. I mean, 4 out of 10 people will suffer from a mental health challenge within their lifetime. So that's, quite a sobering statistic. However, we also have made amendments to allow for community treatment orders so that persons can be treated in the community without having to have admissions at MWI. If we see that there is an increase of need for the services because of persons having challenges, as you said, because of unemployment and so forth, and we'll address those accordingly. But one of the things I did mention in the statement, which is critical, is that we as a government are looking at other more emergency needs for persons with respect to not having the ability, because of their unemployment status due to COVID, to find medical insurance as well as to receive medical treatment. So we've been having discussions at the cabinet level for quite some time now. I'm anticipating bringing further papers to cabinet in the next couple of weeks to further address, and we've identified that there's going to be a challenge. We already have over 8% of our population are underinsured, and we anticipate that more will be uninsured as a result of their inability to work due to COVID. So we are exponentially addressing that because we recognize the urgency.
Good evening. Duncan Hall from the World Gazette. Minister of Health, you mentioned the vulnerable person who is in the news this week, and you've highlighted the challenges in a small community of providing the level of care that people like that need. I'm just wondering what you think would be the timing of the solution, and if you have any ideas on what that solution might look like, given the challenges that we face.
Thank you, Duncan. Actually, the court proceedings were dealt with this morning. I'm not 100% seized of what the total deliberations were, but I can say that there was a decision that was made, guided by the courts, as well as with the intervention of the DPP's office, the Attorney General's chambers, court services, the director of the mental health court, as well as Maui was obviously at the table, that there has been a solution to address this person's needs. As you rightly said, given the small size of our community, there are persons that have needs that are far more sophisticated insofar as the type of services that are offered. And when you look in a big geographical location where those needs are also challenged by the fact that there are limited persons that specialize in that particular type of treatment. But we are satisfied that with all of those agencies that I've just mentioned, that we will be able to find a acceptable solution to address his needs as well as the needs of the community.
Mr. Premier, you've mentioned the increased airlift from overseas this month, and I think that you've previously said that it's doubled over last month, and you've also mentioned the critical role that getting visitors here plays in restoring our economy and getting people back to work. But obviously, our largest market is dealing with a high level of COVID, and I wonder if there's a point at which, if we continue to get positive testing positively from the same location, whether you'll look at changing schedules or making some adjustments. Is there kind of a criteria or a stage that might prompt you to change those arrangements?
The short answer to the question is yes. And if you go on the coronavirus.gov.bm website, I think under the indicators, it shows where what levels we have to do until we will go and revert to a previous stage. And so all of that has been laid out. Those have been in place since I think about May, when we were talking about our phase regime going backward and forward. But I think it's important to note that we are confident that the testing regime of which we have set up will protect the country. And I think that over the last month, we have demonstrated that it is able to successfully protect the country from the impact of significant spread of the virus. I remember the discussions in cabinet, and I'm not trying to compare deliberately one country versus another, but there were distinct deliberations between how do you balance, and hoteliers were saying that we need a more relaxed policy because we're not going to get people to travel. But we made the decision that it is vital to make sure we open our economy, well also to make sure we can balance the safety impacts that would have on our community. So when we look at the whole issue of visitors, I don't actually believe that any case that has been imported has been from a visitor, and it has all been from returning residents. So that's the reason why the Minister of Health is very adamant that people should limit their travel unless they have to travel. But we also have to recognize that Bermuda has a different tourism demographic than other countries. So you look at the situation in the Bahamas, where unfortunately they've had to revert back to a full nationwide lockdown due to cases that were imported. their test regime was nowhere near as strict as our test regime. So I think that we struck the right balance. We will continue to see how this works over the next I would say the next few months. What I can say is that as bad as the situation is in the United States, finally, I think that they've actually realized that wearing masks is probably a good idea. So the situation might get a little bit better as time goes on. But we're confident in the testing regime of which we set up. The minister has stated that they're looking to expand the testing teams. We're looking to possibly look at any changes to the testing process, which may be made. And we're also making sure that we procure additional equipment to make sure that we can continue to keep up with demand and have the redundancy which is necessary to continue to keep the country safe. And there was a question from Trevor earlier who asked about the costs of testing. But what I can say is the minister will certainly provide those costs. What I can say is in July, we did earn $250,000 in revenue from the travel authorizations for returning residents and visitors, which will certainly offset those testing costs.
Mr. Premier, I think it's widely considered, as you've mentioned again tonight, and most of us, I think, acknowledge that the government's done a good job of keeping the island safe from the health impact of COVID-19. But as you look into the future to consider what the future might bring, is there anything in particular that keeps you up at night? Is there a particular worry?
Oh boy, I think myself, Mr. Health, we all have the same worries. It's the worries about the severe economic challenges the country will face as we move forward, and the work which is necessary and required right now to ensure that we minimize what those challenges may be as we go forward. So the best protection against that is to make sure that we do not have to revert back to previous phases of opening, and that's why it's important to maintain our issues, our regime at the border, and making sure that our citizens adhere to the rules. But I'm certain that the Minister of National Security, is challenged when it comes to the issues of gang violence reduction and other things, and the tensions which are inside of our community, which are certainly exacerbated when there are economic challenges. And without question, I know that the Minister of Labor is certainly kept up at night thinking about the challenges, whether it's persons who are currently on the temporary unemployment benefit, the transition of those things, those to longer term benefits, etc. But here's where I'm confident, Duncan. I'm confident that in the exact same way that the country was able to unify during the health crisis, we'll be able to unify during the upcoming economic crisis. And it could be seen by persons making sure they're doing staycations. It can be seen by persons who are promoting local businesses more and trying to make sure they consciously make an effort to support local business. And it can be seen by persons helping out their neighbors, making sure they check on persons and making sure they share what they have with those persons who will be less fortunate. It is going to be a difficult few months, and it's going to be a difficult winter and a difficult spring until our tourism ministry can get back to a more normal level. But I'm confident with the discussions that the cabinet had this Tuesday regarding our economic plan going forward, the fact that the Minister of Finance is going to the international markets for financing, and the fact that we're going to be able to press forward with those initiatives which we've laid out and which will continue to be developed, I think is important. So what keeps me up at night is the economic challenges of which the country will face, but I am comforted by the fact that we have responded so well to the health challenges that I have no doubt that we'll be able to maintain that unity to tackle the economic challenges that we have.
Mr. Hayward, are you able to tell us how many people whose unemployment benefits have run out have applied for financial assistance, and how many have been approved, and more details about what level of assistance they might receive? And I guess it's a two-part question as well. If everyone who's been turned down for financial assistance receives the supplemental employment benefit, what would the amount of that benefit be? We've known very well for some time that the current benefit is $500 a week. I'm just wondering what level people will be transitioning to.
So at this point, I received a report from financial assistance, and 258 persons have picked up applications. So all those applications haven't been returned, as the process is somewhat rigorous, but the majority of those applications are from retail and other industries, while 124 is from persons that were in the hotel industry. As the weeks go, we will have better numbers as to whether or not they qualify for FA or they will be able to take advantage of the supplementary benefit.
Do you know what level of support people will receive if they're approved?
So the FA benefit is actually prescribed in regulation, and it's on a individual means basis. And so they use a particular formula that lies within the financial assistance regulations, and their benefits will be according to law. When we look at the supplemental benefit, we're looking at a monthly cash payment that would also include some form of benefit for health insurance for those individuals that don't possess health insurance. And those numbers will be finalized by next week.
Thank you.
Oh, no. That's it.
Good afternoon. I am Mackenzie Cole-Tuckett reporting for Media Maya. My first question is for you, Mr. Premier. With regard to the meeting between bus operators and the management team that was scheduled to take place this morning, is specific information regarding school buses likely to be shared this Saturday when the Minister of Education hosts the school information session that you spoke of?
It is my hope that that could happen. I was informed that the reason why the buses returned so quickly is because the meeting actually did not take place today as it was planned on taking place. But I do know that there's been consultation between the Department of Public Transportation, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Education on those. And it is hoped that that information will be able to share. I know that the Ministry of Transport is working to ensure that we can have the lift which is necessary for our students while making sure they're transported in a safe environment.
Thank you. Minister Ming, we've been made to understand that persons who are incarcerated at the co-ed facility are questioning when they will be able to resume work and charity activities. Would you say that the employment challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic are the reason why resumption has been delayed, or is it more to do with the risk of possible exposure to the virus?
Mackenzie, I actually don't know the answer to that, but I will endeavor to find out for you, because if that's the case, I'd like to find out as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Minister Hayward, can you advise if any post-secondary students have made application for the one-year residential certificate?
I don't have the demographic information on those who applied at the moment, but certainly what we will do in further releases is share whether or not persons are coming for remote work or whether students are coming to do their tertiary education from Bermuda.
Thank you. And my final question is for you, Minister Wilson. Medical research experts are hoping that a coronavirus vaccine will be available by mid-2021. Is the vigorous testing regime that is currently in place in Bermuda likely to remain in place until a vaccine is developed? And will the government mandate that individuals are vaccinated?
Thank you for that's a very important point. I think to answer the first question, the testing regime will the rigorous testing regime that we have implemented will maintain in place for many months to come, years to come. Certainly until we see a successful vaccine implemented and introduced and licensed and so forth. So that testing regime will continue for many months and probably years to come. The one advantage about, I think, the it's kind of perverse to say this, but the fact that the coronavirus is a pandemic, we have so many countries that are all the best minds and scientists in the world are all trying to produce a type of vaccine. There have been some success stories that we've seen recently with respect to some testing. And so it is hoped that by 2022, there will be a vaccine. However, insofar as whether or not we make it mandatory to require persons to be vaccinated, that's a discussion that will have to be had. As you'll note that there's no mandatory vaccinations here in Bermuda at this point yet, though it's urged that people take a flu shot and they have the measles and the mumps shots and so forth. And those vaccines have proven successful, obviously, to eradicate diseases that 30 years ago were prevalent. The educational exercise that's being done with the Ministry of Health to make sure that people are more aware of the importance of vaccination will continue. But insofar as whether or not a mandatory edict will be made with respect to COVID-19 vaccination when it's introduced, it's too hard to say at this point.
Thank you.
The only place where I can see mandatory vaccinations, Mackenzie, might be for people who are wishing to travel to the country.
Thank you.
Good evening, Don Burgess for Bermuda Broadcasting. Health Minister, the airport has been open for a month now, and protocols are in place to test visitors on arrival, day 4, day 8, and day 14. How many of the arriving passengers have tested positive on arrival versus testing positive on day 4, 8, and 14?
Of all the 11 cases that have tested positive thus far, they were all tested on arrival. We've seen no positive tests for 4, 8, or 14-day tests.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Just to follow up a little bit on the vaccine, do we have any information yet about how the overseas territories such as Bermuda could be allocated COVID-19 vaccines by the UK once they're developed?
There was a summit of World Health Assembly Global Summit on Vaccines and Pledging Summit by the European Commission, and all the world leaders have agreed that through PAHU and the World Health Organization, in collaboration with international partners, that there will be a global access, a COVAX facility for ensuring that there'll be distribution of the vaccine to all countries, and that it will be a mechanism that ensures a fair and equitable distribution to the countries.
Thank you. Health Minister, you said recently the reason why Bermuda is not doing invasive PCR screening on younger children is that they are not susceptible to catching and spreading the disease as older children or adults. However, several scientific research studies published within the last week clearly show that children, and particularly younger children, are highly efficient at catching and spreading COVID-19. This is important given Bermuda's current airport screening process and the return to school plans next month. Is your ministry looking to adjust testing policies on the basis of this latest scientific information?
Thank you, John. I actually watched with interest recently some cases in the United States where we're seeing younger children that have been exposed to COVID-19. The one factor that we know, I guess the one stagnant factor of COVID-19 is that it's evolving and ever changing. And the information that we received in scientific evidence-backed information 2 weeks ago was different than 2 months ago. So the epidemiology and surveillance unit at the Ministry of Health are constantly keeping up to date with the scientific community. Evidence-based decisions will be made, and if changes are required with respect to our testing protocols, it will be based on the medical evidence backed by the science.
Okay, thank you. Parents who have taken their children to hotspot countries over the summer break will return to Bermuda in the coming weeks and put their children back into school, and many will not be tested due to their age at this point. Given that we now know that young children can become much more contagious and can be more efficient at spreading the disease than adults, how do you plan to keep the virus out of the schools when we aren't testing the younger children, particularly upon arrival at the airport?
John, as we've been speaking about the travel, we are desperately encouraging Bermudians and residents to avoid non-essential travel, certainly to hotspots, as you've spoken about. But again, this is an evolving situation. And a couple of weeks ago, there was the science-backed evidence was suggesting that there was less transmission in children under 10, but the epidemiology and surveillance unit under the chief medical officer are exploring these options as we speak, because we recognize that novel coronavirus is moving and ever changing. And as things change, then we have to make sure that we change with the circumstances based on the science and the evidence.
So you are looking at possibly testing younger children.
We're looking at everything. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And that would include also perhaps mandatory quarantine prior to returning to school.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
In the UK, they're rolling out 2 new test kits developed at Oxford, which can produce results in as little as an hour and can be administered by non-medical personnel. Are you aware of these products? And if so, are you interested in acquiring them?
We're always looking out for more innovative ways of and efficient ways of testing. However, we would have to ensure that they were validated and fit for purpose. So those are things that are being explored as we speak.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the questions from the members of the media. I'm happy that we were able to give an update to the country. We will see you again next week, Thursday, and I wish everyone a very safe and happy weekend. And so with that, I would like to say good evening, Bermuda, and thank you.